Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the Meowy Night Zentangle inspired class. I'm going to be teaching this class for the San Rafael Public Library tomorrow, and I'm very excited about it. So let's go ahead and talk about the things that we are going to need for class today. I'm going to be starting off the class by using a Micron PN pen. I also have a graphite pencil, and I'm also going to be using a puddling pen. Now today I'm going to be using the Micron brush pen, but if you have the Pitt pen by Faber-Castell or an Identi-pen or even a Sharpie, what I'm looking for is a pen that has a thick nib on it so that when we fill in the cat, it's not going to take you a super long time to do it. You know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl. I will be working with Prismacolor pencils in class today. So if you haven't had a chance to pick these up, definitely do. But you know what? We're in a time where you just make do with what you've got. So whatever you've got, pull that stuff out and we're going to get started with it. Now, the final component is that I'm going to be working on the Genesis tile. These tiles are in my Tangled Yogi shop at tangledyogi.com. And if you don't have these, you can always just use your sketchbook and make a square that's 4.5 by 4.5 and have some fun. All right, let's get started with the Meowy Night. So I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil here and start the regular old-fashioned Zentangle way here. And I'm going to start by placing my dots in my corners here. I'm going to go ahead and start to connect my corners just by creating a nice line here. And you'll notice there's a little wiggle in my line today, and I'm sure there's a wiggle in yours too. And just allow it to be exactly how it is today. You can see that I'm turning the tile to make it work for my hand here. So I have my border. Now what I'm going to do is write down the center, and you'll notice that I'm on the diagonal here. My tile looks like a diamond, right? So what it's going to be is I'm going to come in and very, very lightly, this is just very faint, this is going to be a guideline for me for later on when we build our cat here. So I'm just doing a division line right down the center. Okay? And so that is how we are going to build our border and our string today. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to tangle. So I'm going to start to build here into the tangle that we're going to be working with. And I'm going to start by creating a really nice arc down at the bottom of our piece. And I'm going to come out about 1 inch, and I'm going to make a dot right here and a dot right over here. So it's 1 inch from the bottom. And then I'm going to just go ahead and create a little half moon right here. Now once I've created that half moon, I'm going to do what we call an aura line that's right behind the half moon. Now once I have that aura line in there, I'm going to create some just really nice lines, or you could call it thatching, just to give a little bit of texture to the piece. I'll come over to the other side and do the same. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead one more time and I'm going to do a really thin aura, and I like to turn my tile when I'm doing really thin bands. It just seems to help me to do the piece. So however you like to do that, you can go ahead and do that. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to learn the tangle del Y. All right, so let's go ahead and learn a really fun tangle. This is called del Y. And it is created by Stephanie Jennifer, and she's actually one of the gals that I love in the tangle world because she always comes up with such wonderful different Zentangles. So thank you, Stephanie, for this wonderful tangle here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start by doing 2 leaves on either side. And then we're going to add a leaf to the center. And then right over the top, we're going to create a leaf-like shape that's going to go over the top. And that is del Y. Now, I'm going to do a slightly different version of del Y in my piece here, and it's going to look a little something like this. So I'm going to start by doing it like a flux, and then I'll do one on the side and one over here. And then I'm going to let my upper piece connect to the outside of these. And this is just a tangulation on this. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a little bit of a flap. So that's going to be my version of del Y. So coming over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just by putting in that flux first. So I'm just going to come up about a ½ inch, and then I'll do a little one on the side, and then another one on this side. And then I'm going to start to build up from the side. So I'm going to come up and over, and then I'm going to come down and in, and I'll give it a flap. Now I'm also going to go ahead and aura this, so I'm just going to come down from the bottom. Nice gentle aura. And back in. So let's go ahead and do it again. I'm going to come to the side here. I'm going to do a nice flux. And then I'll go ahead and I'll come up and over. And then once again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to aura. And I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So I'm just turning my piece, creating, coming up and over, down and in. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do the aura. So that is the beginning of our mandala that's at the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to build again. Now you can see that I've got spaces in between. Now originally I didn't. And so what I'm going to do, just because Zentangle is playing with what you have here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw a tipple in there. So tipple is just a circle or an orb. And then I'll go ahead and I'll start again. So, you kind of play with what you've got. And this is what I had today. So it's slightly different than the original, but different. Coming down and in, and I'll come over to the other side and do the same. And then I'm going to do some of these, but like a half. And so I'm going to throw in a little side of a tipple there. And then I'm going to do half of a flux and another flux right there and make it look like there's half. And I'll do another one over here. So I'll come in, I'll do half of a tipple, come up, do half of a flux, and then come up and over, and once again do a little aura. That one got a little bit bigger than I planned, but that's okay. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to continue to tangle. Okay, so now that we have that mandala in at the bottom here, we're going to add our cat in, and I'm going to pick up my my graphite pencil, and the reason for that is that I want you to feel as comfortable as you want to feel about creating the cat here. It's super easy, but I just wanted you to feel super comfortable with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up towards the middle here and maybe just a little bit above and make a little dot. And this is going to help me to create the cat. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little line here that's flat. And then I'm going to do almost like a triangle shape that comes down towards my mandala. Once I have that, I'm going to put two little arcs coming down and out on the side. That's going to be the hips of the cat here. And then I'm going to create the tail of the cat just by coming up and out and making like a printemps. And for those of you who are new to Zentangle, printemps is just a spring or a curl. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn my piece on its side, and I'm just going to do a leaf-like shape that's going to be the head of the cat. See how that's just a leaf-like shape? Let's go ahead and zoom in on that for you there. I'm going to turn this back. We're going to give him his ears by doing a triangle here and a triangle there. And that's it. That's all that cat is. Super easy and super fun. So you can see that I've picked back up my pen, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to just go where I started the first time. And I don't know why, but whenever I look at this originally before I ink it in, I always think of the Pink Panther because it kind of looks like the Pink Panther to me. And I'll turn it around and in, and then I'll go on its side, and then I'm going to go ahead and go up and over and up and over. Now once I have that, I know that a lot of you have seen that there were whiskers on the cat. I'm going to do the whiskers at the very, very end so that when I'm doing my background, it's not going to be an issue. Now, today I'm going to be working with the Micron PN brush, or rather the Micron brush, but if you have your favorite puddle pen like the Idena pen, or if you like the Pitt pen, you can use that. You know, I have a ton of different kinds of puddle pens, and so I just want to show you how I'm going to puddle this in. Puddling just means I'm pooling ink in an area, which is another way of saying filling in the space with just a little bit more elegance, I guess. And the reason why I love these brush pens so much is because you can see that it makes it a lot easier to fill in the space rather than using the Micron PN. So I'm going to start to fill in the body here, or puddle in the body. And you can see that I'm just doing small brush strokes. And really taking my time. And you know, some of you might have to do a second pass at this just in case the background is poking through, but you can see that I'm starting to work inside of the hips of the cat. And starting to bring this over and in. Coming over to where the tail is. And starting to work over in the tail. And isn't that so fun? So that when I go ahead and zoom out, there you have it. And you know, this is a great template. You could throw in any tangles that you want to and start to work around your cat. So, you know, I don't want you to feel beholden to the tangles that I'm talking about. You could do anything. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and carry on, but you go ahead and finish up your cat, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with a really fun tangle called Heartfelt. Okay, so I misspoke there. It is called Heartfully, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to bring this in here, and I'm going to pick up my micron so that we can learn Heartfully by Helen Williams. So this is called Heartfully, and it's by Helen Williams. And basically, what heartfully looks like is it's hearts that are joined together. So you're going to see me just create a heart, and I'm going to turn my tile and go again and connect, turning my tile, and then going again and connecting. So this is one way of doing heartful. There you go. Now you could also do heartfully like this. You could turn the hearts around and you could just keep turning your tile. And I'm turning again. So you gotta go with what works for you, right? So some people really like it the first way, some people really like it the second way. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do some short hearts in between to bring them together. And so that's two different ways to do heartfully, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take that off to the side here, and we're going to bring some heartfully near our cat. So the way that I do it is I started by coming in right next to my cat here, and I'm going to do a heart that is going straight up and down. I'm going to turn my tile over and in, turning the tile, and one more time for good luck. Now, what I'm going to do with the heartfully here is I'm going to give it a stem and connect it down into our mandala here. So I think what I'm going to do is just give this a little bit of a curve and connect it in, and I'll do another right over here just to connect it in. Now, just for kicks, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the center and give it a little bit of a center point. And if you want to, you could even go again and give that some more interest. And I also really love the idea of giving it almost like a thorn that's in the middle of each little heart here. And if you wanted to, you could add a dot at the end, and that's almost like the Tangle finery. It gives it a little bit of interest. So if you want to add a second one, you could add a second one right here, and that's what I'm going to do. So once again, starting straight up and down, turning my tile, turning again, and one more for good luck. Coming back to center, and once again I'm going to add another stem coming back into the center. I'll come in over here, give it a thorn or two, and then a dot at the end of each. And then why not? Let's do one over on the other side here. I like to work in threes. I think that when you work in threes, it makes it much more interesting, and I've got a really nice space here. So I'm just going to come in, turning the tile, turning again, and one more time. And then once we've come back to center, let's create a little bit of a stem. Let's bring that back and in. Gives it a little bit of movement or whimsy, if you will. Into the center, a little dot, some lines to connect. And let's go ahead and give it some thorns in each of these. And a dot. So really fun tangle, Heartfully by Helen Williams. I hope that you're enjoying that as much as I am. So when we come back, we're going to start to add in another tangle, and this one's by Lynn Mead, and I believe it's called Flux Echo. Okay, so here we are, and let's start to do Flux Echo. Really fun tangle by Lynn Mead, and basically what it is you have a nice orb that you start with, and then you go ahead and you start with a nice wide flux. Flux is the tangle that looks like a upside down teardrop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little echo on the side and drop in towards the center. Another echo on the side, dropping in towards the center, coming in, and just continuing down the side of the orb. I'm going to go to the other side and do the same. In towards center, in towards center, just following down the side of the orb. And that is Flux Echo. So let's go ahead and bring Flux Echo into our piece here. So, I love the idea of pushing things together and having them look like they're in front of and behind and all sorts of things. So I'm just going to start my Flux Echo right over here, and I'll just start my orb right on that line. Now you'll note that it will go behind some of that Heartfully. So I'll just start the Flux Echo right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add one here and one here. Now you'll notice that I run out of room here because my border is there, so I'll just go over to the other side and come in. And you can see that I'm kind of dancing behind that Heartfully. Super fun and really, really pretty. Now I think I'm going to add another one right up in here. So I'll come up over here, and I'll let one dance up into here. And one over here. You can see that I'm lifting up my pen and going behind Heartfully. And you know me, I like to work in threes, so maybe let's throw one in on the other side here. So I'm going to come in over here and let it kind of sit right on the side of my mandala. And I'll come up and over and in, down the side, and once again over here, and down the side. So that is Flux Echo. Okay, so let's learn a new tangle here, and this is called Finery. Now, Finery is not actually a new tangle, but it is created by Zentangle Inc. here. And the way that I do Finery is I like to start by creating a stem. And then I go around the stem almost like an oak leaf. Now, once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to create a little bit of interest right around the oak leaf here. And what that is going to look like is we're going to start by creating these almost like wavy lines that come down from the sides here. So you can see that it has like a little bit of a wave to it. And then in between those waves, I'm going to create a thorn-like shape that comes up and out. I'll do one out here as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull those in. Going nice and light with that pen. And then I'm going to create little dots right behind each of these thorns. And it gives this really neat kind of leaf-like pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take finery off to the side here, and I'm going to start to look at the sides of my piece. And I wanted the idea of like big palms, or almost like fanning in towards the center here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start really close to the edge, and I'm going to create the stem that goes in towards my cat, and then I'm going to let it come back and out. Now I'm going to turn my tile on its side here so that you can see what I'm up to. And I'm going to start to create that leaf-like shape. I want you to think of like this cat is almost like in a jungle, or like Costa Rica, tropical space. I'll let that kind of dance with the edge here. So once I have that, I'm going to start to create those lines that are going to go in. And I'm just going to go 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3. And I might add one more right in here. Now I like the idea of aura-ing those lines, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go 1 and 2 on each side of those auras here. So we're kind of playing with the tangle. And now I'm going to go in and add my thorns. So I'm just going to add these little thorns on here, right over here, and right down here. And I'm puddling or pooling my ink. And I might add something up at the top. Why don't we just do some curved lines right up at the top here? Get some thorns in there. Add some dots, and just depending on how much room you have inside of your leaf. So there's one side, which is going to look great when it's shaded. Let's go ahead and do the other side. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to start to arc right back into where my flex echo is. So you can see that I'm starting to build that stem, bringing it down and in. Another one right over here, just a nice narrow aura there. And then I'm going to turn it on its side and start to build the leaf. Now you'll see that part of my leaf kind of jumps off the page, so I'll be focusing more on this bottom part right in here. Once I have it, I'm going to start in with those lines. Remember those lines that we used to divide? And then I'm going to go ahead and aura those lines right here and right here. Now I'm going to start to add in those little thorny pieces. Maybe I can get one in there and one over here. And then once again, a couple of dots on each side. And then maybe up at the top I'll add one as well. So that when I turn it, look at how wonderful that is. It has a really nice tropical feel in here. So go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine. Okay, so now let's just say that you've got a lot of space around your cat, and that things didn't get as squished in as you had hoped. So you can always come back into your Flex Echo and add an extra one right in here. So I'm going to just go ahead and add one in here, just right there. And you can see that some of my flex echo is going to go behind my finery, and that's just fine. And some of it even looks like it's going to go behind the cat. So it's okay to play. It's okay to throw things in where, you have some spaces. Don't feel like you have to be confined to just one thing. And then, me, I love to add tipple into some of these things. And so, you could add tipple randomly around the piece as well. I'm going to throw my tipple in at the very last. So we're going to do one more tangle here, and it's called Mollygon. And Mollygon is normally done where you have a series of crescent moons that are echoing each other. And for this particular piece, I was looking to create a Mollygon that felt like the moon. So you can see that Mollygon has kind of a fun feel to it. Now, in our Mollygon, I'm going to be throwing in some tipple, and that's why I was talking about it. You can see that I just created an aura inside of the Mollygon. And all I'm going to do is start to throw in these really fun orbs. And you'll notice that they're all different sizes. I think it's always more interesting when your orbs are different sizes. So that's Mollygon. So let's take that off to the side here, and I'm just going to come up right above where my cat is, and I'm going to do kind of a Mollygon that's on its side. And let's see if I can get that to join back in. And then I'll create a nice aura. It's an internal aura. And then I'll go ahead and put my tipple inside. Now you could do any tangle inside of here, so it doesn't have to just be tipple, but for those of you who know me, tipple is my favorite tangle. And you'll notice that you get these kind of weird little spaces in between. Let's see if I can go ahead and zoom in on this here. So you can see I've kind of got these weird little spots here. Those are called interstices. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill those in. Those weird little triangles. But that really worked out nicely so that when I zoom out, it really gives a little bit of gravity right above that cat. Super fun, really playful. Now I can go in and start to add these kind of floating orbs. And for me, tipple is like confetti. It just kind of brings a party-like atmosphere into a tangle. So you're going to start to see me bring in, some big orbs, some medium-sized orbs. Here's an orb that's going to go right next to the cat. I'm going to have some over here. And just playing around, finding a fun spot to place these. Maybe some over here. I don't want to go too tipple crazy, but it's always fun to have them around. Let's see here. Where do I want to add this? Maybe one right here. Super fun. So go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back, we're going to do one more thing before we start to add color. So I'm going to start to build my border here. You'll notice that, we didn't ink in our borders right away. I like to leave that open so that if there's anything that does break a border, you don't have to feel like it's impeding the piece. So you can see that I'm just filling that in, going nice and slow. And voila, look at how fun that is. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to build. Now I know I said I was going to add the whiskers. Those are going to be at the very, very end after we've filled in the whole piece. Okay, so we are going to get started with our shading for our Zentangle tonight. And what we're going to do is we're going to be working with a few different colors here. So I'm going to pick up 3 different colors that I'm going to be working with. And if you don't have these colors, don't worry about it. You can always use colors that are in a similar hue, and that will always help out for this. So I'm going to be working with the yellowed orange, which is PC1002. I'm also going to be working with the color orange, which is PC918. And then finally, I'm going to be working with one of my favorite colors. This is magenta, and this is PC930. And what I'm really trying to get at is a really beautiful warm palette for our piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by working with the mandala that is just beneath our cat here. Now you can see that my pencil is all sharpened up. It's always nice to have a good sharp lead when you're working in a large area. Now for those of you who have never done color with me before, I love to tell people that you have 3 different colors with one color pencil. You have light, you have medium, and you have dark. It's all about the amount of pressure that you're putting on that pencil. Now sometimes it's nice to have a darker color nearby if you're working with a color that's pretty translucent in nature, and this one is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start down here at the bottom of my piece. So let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And you know, if you feel the need to erase your guideline that's in there, you can go ahead and do that. You know, I have these really fun gummy erasers that I like to work with here, and so you can always take those little lines out if you want to. So let's start by working on the side of the pencil here, and I'm going to hold the pencil with my thumb and my index finger, and then my middle finger is going to stabilize it. I'm going to lay the lead down onto the side of the pencil and onto the page, and you can see that I'm doing little circles to give a really soft mist of color. Once I've got that soft mist of color in there, you can notice that I've left a little bit of white right up here in the left-hand corner of that circle. I'm going to come in and I'm going to press a little bit harder. This is that medium pressure now. And just give this a little bit of that warmth that we're looking for. Nice shadow in there. And then once I've had a chance to get that in, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the orange that I have, and you'll notice that I'm actually working on the tip of that pencil, and I'm really hugging the outside edge of the piece here. I'm not adding too much into the center. And taking my time with it. And I'm using a really light pressure. I'm going to come up right over the top here and give this a little bit of dimension. And then I'm going to pick up that red that we were talking about, the magenta. And this is really just going on to the black line itself. And you'll notice that this is giving it quite a glow. Now, if you have a white color pencil, this is the PC938 from Prisma. I love this pencil. And what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to use it to blend. Now, you'll want to make sure that your pencil is clean so that you're not getting any kind of other color in there. And I'm just going in right where that dark orange is meeting that light yellow. And I'm doing little circles and just kind of blurring out my lines of demarcation. Now I'm going to start to go further back, And you can see where the orange is starting to meet that light yellow. I'm going to come in here and give that a little bit of a blur. And then right where that red is meeting the orange, I'm going to give that a little bit of a blur too. So little circles in here, giving this a little bit of dimension, and look at how beautiful those all blend into each other so nicely. So I really like to use the white pencil for doing my blending, because sometimes you'll be working with a blender pencil and you change your mind, and sometimes the blender pencil will put so much wax on the page that you can't actually go back and work over it. So there you have that beautiful gemstone there. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to work with mine a little bit, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work up into our Del Y. Okay, so we're going to do what I like to call carrying color, and we're going to use the same colors up here in Del Y. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with my orange here, and I'm going to focus in on the center of Del Y here. So you're going to see me come into this area. I'm going to go very softly. So I'm going to start with the orange, and I'm going to come in right here. I thought I had hit the record button, but I hadn't. So I'm going to start in with the orange and just give this a light dusting right into the center of our Del Y here. So I'm just really laying down a base color here, because we're going to come back in with a little bit of that magenta in a moment. So I have the base of the orange in there, and let's go ahead and we're going to zoom in on that. Now I'm going to pick up that magenta, and I'm just going to lightly dust right at the bottom. And this is going to give a really nice dimension to this leaf. And then I'm going to press just a bit harder right in here. I'm going to come back in with some of that orange right where the red is meeting the orange. I'm going to do a little blur out of color here just to give that a little bit of richness. And I'm going fairly lightly with that orange just to give it a softness. And then I'm going to come back in now with that yellow that we used down here, and just go right up over that orange that we have up top. And look at how that starts to glow. It really gives this beautiful feel of color, but it also blends out the two colors so nicely. Look at how gorgeous that is. So we're going to continue with that in all of our pieces right here, here, and here. So go ahead and do that with all of yours. I'm going to do it with mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to carry that color outward. So one of the things that I talk about in my videos is carrying color, and that means taking color from one part of the piece and carrying it to another, and that helps the eye to land around the piece a little bit more. So we're going to take these same colors and bring them up into where we did Heartfully, and I'm going to come into Heartfully, and let's zoom in on this, and just do a soft dusting of the yellow into where the heart is. Now once I have that, I'm going to take a little bit of the orange and bring it onto the tip of the heart, and I'm using a medium pressure here. And then finally I'm going to take some of that red, and I am going to bring that red into the very tip of it. So you can see that there's a little bit of all of that color throughout. So I've got the dark red, the orange, and the light yellow. I'm going to come back in with the light yellow, and I'm going to start to blend in the orange and the red to the yellow, just to give it a softening. And you can see how that blurs that out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that in all of my Heartfully around the piece. Okay, so go ahead and do yours, and I'll finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with our Flux Echo. Okay, so we've started to carry that color around the piece, which is really starting to draw your eye upward, which I really enjoy. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to Flux Echo. That's these beautiful pieces right in here. And inside the orbs, we're going to carry some of that orange and red and yellow. So let's go ahead and take a look at this for a moment. So let's start with this one right here. You can see I'm starting with my yellow first, and I'm going to do a very soft dusting of that yellow, leaving a little bit of a light source on the left-hand side. So not unlike what we did down here. I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that orange, and you'll notice that my pencils are pretty sharp. You want to keep your pencils sharp too, because you're working in small spaces. And then finally, I'll come in with a little bit of that magenta and just give it a dusting right along the edge. Now I can come back in with a little bit of that orange and just blur out the edge of where the magenta is meeting the orange. And then I'll come back in with a little bit of the yellow and just give it a softening. And you can see that that brings a lot of dimension into those orbs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to all of mine that are like that and fill that in as well. So the final place where we're going to add a little bit more of this orange is we're going to go into finery and start to dust in finery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the piece on its side here, and you'll notice that my pencil is really well sharpened up here, and that's because we're going to be doing a lot of work on the side of the pencil. So I'm going to start to dust in the top of where that kind of oak leaf shape is, and you'll notice that I'm working on the side of the pencil and I'm doing small little circles. Let's get right into this here. So really working on the side of the pencil to lay down that color. And you'll notice that I'm leaving the stem alone here. And then finally, I'm going to come in with a little bit of that orange that we've been working with here. And I'm just working on the tip of the pencil, but you'll notice that I'm still working with little circles here. And this is going to give a soft mist of color that's going to emanate outward from the stem. Coming over to the other side. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of that red and bring it right along the stem, getting a really nice soft glow right in through the center. I'm going to pick up some of that yellow pencil, and I'm going to start to blur out a little bit of where that orange is meeting the yellow. And a little bit over here too. So that when we go ahead and zoom out, look at how that has a really nice soft shading to it. Now you may decide that you want to come back in with a little bit of your white and work with a little bit of the white and give it a little bit of blending as well. So that's really a personal preference. You can just come in and blend that out a little bit if you like. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. You can go ahead and do yours. And then when we come back, we're going to start to come back to the Flux Echo. Okay, so before we go into Flux Echo, let's work on this really fun tangle up in here, Polygon. We're going to carry the color one last time, and it is going to work a little something like this. So we're going to start in with a little bit of that yellow. And then in the corners of the Polygon here, we're going to pick up a little bit of that orange, and let's go ahead and bring this in So giving a really nice dusting of that orange, so it's almost got like a harvest moon kind of feel. Getting right in there. And then picking up a little bit of that yellow again and blurring it out. And then picking up a little bit of that red and just dusting into the corners, giving it kind of a spooky Halloween kind of feel. And that just gives that a really nice, neat look for above our cat. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we'll come to the Flex Echo. So we're going to let go of the orange and the yellows here, and I'm going to pick up some new colors for us. I'm going to be working with the lime peel green, and this is PC 1005. Can you tell that I love this color? I use it quite a bit. And then I'm also going to be working with the Prussian green, which is PC 109. Now remember, if you don't have the same colors as me, just try to get into the same hue. You'll be just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to where the Flex Echo is, and I'm just going to start to dust into it. So I'll just come right in here and dust right into Flex Echo. And you'll notice that I'm working on the side of my pencil, trying to get as much of that lead down onto the paper as I can. Now once I have that, I'm going to come back in with a little bit of the Prussian green and start to just bring a little shadow around the orb that's in the center. Now I'm not pressing very hard with the Prussian green because it's so heavily pigmented, I don't really have to. I will give it a little bit of pressure towards the very end here just to get a little bit of glow happening. Now you'll notice that I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that lime peel green again, and I'm going to press about a medium pressure where the dark green is meeting the lighter green, and you can see that that's giving me a nice line of softness in here, so the line of demarcation is going away and just getting this to be a little bit softer. So that is how I'm going to go ahead and start shading all of my Flex Echo. Go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with the background. So I'm really loving the way that that light green bounces off of where the oranges are. So we're going to carry that light green just for a moment before we work with the background, and I'm going to carry it in two other places. The first place that I'm going to carry it is into the center of our del Y. So you can see that I'm just going to go in and just go right into the center of del Y. And let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And I'm going to dust it in at the bottom with a little bit of that darker color. And then the other place where I'm going to bring in the green is into the stems of our heartfully. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in with that light green, leave a little bit of space in the center, and then I'll go in with the darker green and dust into here as well. And that's going to give a little bit of interest into that stem. So I'm going to do all of the stems that I have and all of the centers of our del Y. Okay? Have fun. So this is where things start to get really fun. This is a great place to take a picture of your piece before it starts to really change. We're going to start to work with that background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by bringing in two new colors. So I'm going to be working with the light aqua, which is PC 992, and then I'm also going to be working with the cobalt turquoise, which is PC 105. And really what I'm looking for is a light blue and a dark blue that you can work in the background. Now you want to make sure that your pencils are sharpened so that you can work with the lead that you have. And the reason for this is that you just want to get as much coverage as you possibly can. So you can see that I'm pretty well sharpened up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by coming in with that light aqua, and I'm going to work the entire background here. So you can see the way that I'm holding that pencil once again with the thumb and the index finger, and then the middle finger is stabilizing it. And you know, if you want to go ahead and erase any lines that might be in your piece, you can absolutely go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start just by bringing that down, and you can see that I'm working with that pencil in a really nice soft way. It's not a heavy pressure that I'm putting down, and just little circular motions, and I'm kind of bobbing and weaving around the tipple that are in here and working around the cat. You can see that I'm going to start to layer it all the way through the piece. So go ahead and start to work with yours. I'm going to go ahead and start to work with mine. And this is going to take a minute or two just to get around the whole piece. And so I'm just starting to dive down into where the flowers are. And it almost has kind of a jungle-like feel or a tropical feel. Now, once I've had a chance to get most of that in there, just for the sake of the video here, I'm going to just dive down into this little mandala too. So if you have spaces in between in your mandala, you can also bring that color in. So what I'm going to do, once I have that color inside of the piece, and remember this is just a foundation, it's not what's going to be showing through all the way. So I'm going to come back in with my pencil that I've been working with, and I'm going to start to work a little heavier around the edges here. So you can see that I'm using the point of the pencil now more, and I'm just starting to give this a heavier pressure. I'm going to turn the tile and start to get in through here. And then I'm going to start to make a little shadow that goes around the edge of the flowers and the leaves that I have over here. So I'm really trying to develop a little bit of depth. And then diving down on the edges of where the mandala is. So you can see that this is starting to bring in a little bit of depth. I'm also going to come back up to the top and start to bring a little bit more down from the top. So go ahead and work on yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to bring in that darker color to add the drama that we're looking for. So you can see that I'm starting to go around the leaf on this side as well. Okay? So go ahead and do yours. I'll finish up mine, and then when we come back, we'll bring in that darker color. So I'm bringing in that darker color now, and I'm going to start to just bring it along the edges here. And I'm using that cobalt turquoise, but you can use any kind of blue that you want that's of the darker hues. So if you wanted to work with the Copenhagen blue, or if you wanted to work with the ultramarine blue, that's a nice one too. So there's so many different colors in the Prisma set that you can play with. And so what I'm doing is I'm bringing in that darker color, and I'm starting to layer my colors over the top of each other. What I love about Prismas is that they blend really well together, and you can get a lot of drama out of the colors. And so by going over that medium light aqua, you're going to get a really nice depth of color, which I love. And it looks like I've broken my lid, so I'm going to take a pause here. So I'm just continuing to work these really nice shadows into the environment here. And I'm not being overly careful about it. I'm kind of layering down that color very softly, but I'm also not worrying too much about my blending because I know that I'm going to go back in and blend in a few moments. So I'm really just establishing that nice shadow. Same thing over here, getting right into where the leaves are, getting a little bit of depth in between the leaves. Coming around where the flowers are. And kind of dusting down to where the mandala is. So you can already start to see that the shadows are starting to form really nicely. And then I'm going to pick back up the original color. So this is that light aqua, and I'm going to start to run the light aqua in little circles where the darker color is meeting the lighter color. And the reason why I'm doing this is so that I get a really nice depth of color. I'm not using the white, I'm using the color because I'm looking for it to be a little bit dense in color. If I picked up the white, it would probably blend out a little bit and I'd lose some of that drama. So coming around, getting right in there. Coming over here, remember little circles for mist and depth. So you can see that this is really starting to develop quite nicely, getting that darker color going. And I like the cobalt turquoise because it's kind of an unexpected color. It has kind of a dreariness to it, which I was kind of looking for in the background, because it's kind of a Halloween theme here. I didn't want it to be too bright and bouncy. Get a little spookiness in there. So you can see that I've left kind of this area of lightness around the cat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of my white and I'm just going to start to blend out where the darker colors are meeting the light, because I wanted to highlight where the cat was and not have too much darkness around the cat. So go ahead and blend in your colors the way that you like them, and then when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of wallpaper in the background. So I'm going to pick up that cobalt turquoise. This is the darker color here, and I'm going to start to bring in some swirls into the night sky. So some of you may know that I went down to do the Van Gogh experience, and it was such a neat exhibit. If you have a chance to go and see it, it's really it's wonderful to be inside a Van Gogh painting, and that's exactly what it's like. So what I'm doing is kind of an homage to the Starry Night, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by using that darker color here, and we're going to use it to do our tangling in the background. So we're going to bring in Printemps, which is just a swirl. And what I like to do is first off, I like to go slow with the printemps because it gives you away if you are going too fast. So I go nice and slow with them, and it's just a really nice swirl. And also remember to vary up the size of printemps because that also makes it more interesting to look at. So you can see that I'm just going to start to bring these swirls into the background, and I'm not pressing overly hard. I would say that I'm using a medium tension on this. And you can see that I'm, layering it up as much as I can. And really just taking my time with it. And you can see that it really starts to bring interest into that background. Before it was just kind of neat because it had some shadows in it, but what I love about wallpaper is that it brings texture into the piece without dominating the piece and making it overwhelming. I'll do some smaller ones down in here. So remembering to vary up the size. To make it more interesting. Do a nice small one in here. One over in here. And coming over to the other side and bringing those in as well. And you can see that it just brings in a little bit of energy that the piece didn't have before, which I really like, and I hope you do too. Okay, so go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back we're going to work with tipple, and we're also going to work with the outlines of our mandala. So many of you might know that I am left-handed, and so working with graphite can sometimes be a real chore because you end up wearing it as a left-handed artist. So I'm going to be working with a color pencil that I haven't really talked about much. I usually work with 1065 from Prisma, but today I'm actually going to be working with PC 1056, and this is the 70% warm gray. Let's see if I can get that to go into focus. I'm not sure that I can. So I love this color, and I've been working with it a little bit lately and having some nice results with it. It definitely mimics graphite in a nice way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on our tipple here, and I'm going to use this this gray, this 70% warm gray, and I'm going to go very, very lightly with it. And you can see it looks a lot like graphite. And then I'm going to press a little bit harder here, just along the outside edge. And you'll notice that I've left a little bit of light in that one corner. Now I'm going to pick up the white, and you want to make sure that your white pencil is clean because you don't want to pull any blue in there. And I'm just going to start to blur out the edge of where the white is meeting the gray, and then where that darker gray is meeting the lighter gray. And it really gives a nice kind of soft cloud of color, which is quite lovely. I'm going to go back in with a little bit of that pencil again and just touch the edge of the piece and give it a little bit of a shadow. And I'll do that again one more time for you. So I'm going to come in nice and light, barely touching the page with your pencil. And then coming in onto the corner here and just adding a little bit of drama. Coming in with that white, blurring out the edge of where the white is meeting the gray, and then where the gray meets the darker. and then coming in with just a little bit of that edge right there. And what I love about this is it has just kind of a heavier feel. I don't know why this particular gray has more slate than the 70% cool gray, but it does. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to work with the tipple that I have in this way. And then later on when we come back, I'm going to talk about our mandala. Okay, so this is getting really fun. I'm enjoying it. I hope you are too. So I'm going to come into the area where the mandala is in here, where we used Del Y, and let's go ahead and zoom in on this here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on with the gray, and I'm going to do just a touch of the gray very, very lightly at the bottom. And then I'm going to press a little bit harder. You can see it's a super dark slatey color, which is so cool. And then I'm going to pick up the white and I'm going to start to blur it out and drag up that gray just a little bit. So you can see that that white tends to drag the color a little bit, which is kind of cool. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to just dust the edge of that little flap that we made in the Del Y, and then come in with a little bit of that white and blur out that as well. And you can see that that gives a really nice shadow on it. So we'll go ahead and we'll do those, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come into the area that's right where our kind of orb is, and I'm going to dust the edges here. So going really, really light, leaving a little white in the center. And then I'm going to press a little bit harder right along the edge. I'll come back in with a little bit of the white and blur it out. Same thing over here. And you can see that that brings a little bit of depth in there. So go ahead and have fun with those. And when we come back, we'll work with our stems inside of the finery. So I'm going to take that gray one more time and come over to where finery is, and I'm just going to add a dusting down at the bottom and bring it up about a quarter of the way, and then I'll come over here and do the same thing up at the top. I'm going to come in and add just a little bit of pressure at the top and a little bit of pressure at the bottom. Oops, sorry, I know that that was out of focus. I apologize. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of the white and start to blur out the edges. And you can see that that brings in a little bit of sheen into finery, which is really nice. So let's go ahead and do that again on the other side. I know that it was blurry when I did it the first time. Hopefully this time it's not. And just coming in and dusting. And then over here as well, light dust first, and then go darker later. Now I know some people like to shade the opposite way, but I know that sometimes people can get heavy-handed with their shading, and so going light to dark always seems like the best method for me. So you can see that that brings a really neat element of sheen into the piece here. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to pick up the magenta one last time here, and we're going to bring it into the center of our flowers that we have, the heartfully, okay? So I'm coming into heartfully here, and I'm just going to add a really pale dusting of the magenta right into the center of heartfully. I don't want it to be dark because I don't want to take away from the brightness of the tips on the hearts. So it's just a pale dusting that I'm doing. And I think that it acts really, really well next to it so that I don't have to change colors. It's just the way that I approach the color that's going to be a little bit different. So just a pale dusting inside the center of your Heartfully. And if you want to, you could even pick up your white. Remember to clean it off because you don't want to drag any gray in there. You could come in and just lightly blend in some of that just to make it a little bit softer in its presentation, especially if your paper is a little bit scratchy. Okay, sorry, I know that keeps going out of focus and I'm not sure why. Let's see if I can get it to stop. So you can see it's just a little dusting of that white into Heartfully, which kind of gives it an interesting feel. So that when I zoom out, that really has a little bit of pop to it. And you know, the whole idea was to give this a really nice kind of Halloween coloring. So it's got a lot of that in it, which I really enjoy, and I hope you do too. So now we've come to the point where we're going to go ahead and put the whiskers in on our cat. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to come in and just do some flicks, about 3 of them for each side. And the reason why I do this at the very end is so that I don't smear or smudge the ink that I put down onto the page here. So you can see just a couple of flicks gives us that really fun whisker here. And I've gone ahead and I've put my chop in the corner here. You can see this is my initial, and that way it just lets us know that we finished the piece and, you know, we're letting go of the meditation of Zentangle. I hope that you have enjoyed the class today and that it kind of took your mind off of the rest of the world and just gave you a really nice quiet distraction and a place to create and have some fun. If you did enjoy the class, please give the video a thumbs up. Even better, you can hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified anytime I add a class to my YouTube page. So that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Bye for now.